And then my whole thing is, I say this often, like, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel, but just putting some nice gold rims on that car that's going in the right direction.
Right.
Like, you guys have a working model that's connecting the community.
Hi, I'm Nicole, and I'm an attorney and the legal program director for the Know Your Rights Camp Autopsy initiative. And we're so excited to have Menna with us here today, and she leads the Universal Music Group Task Force of Meaningful Change. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Nicole.
Of course. And so I would love to talk to you about the work that you do for the Meaningful Task Force. So can you tell me kind of what it is, how it started, and what your involvement is?
Sure, absolutely. So in June of 2020, following the murder of George Floyd, the country kind of had an opportunity to, at least for those who who've ignored the issues of racial inequality and police brutality in the criminal justice system, kind of a moment of reckoning with the reality of how race and racism operates in America.
Right.
As a political scientist who basically my research, everything I do is to find methodologies and models to support public policy that reforms and gets us to a better place across communities. And so what I noticed was the music and entertainment industry, along with a number of other private sector industries, were trying to really work on their diversity and equity initiatives. And so Universal Music Group happened to have this unique model and approach to addressing and using their platforms for addressing criminal justice reform through philanthropy. So that's how it started. Most people know us because of our labels like Motown, Def Jam, Interscope, Republic. Mm-hmm. Many artists that you and probably others listen to are affiliated with our company. Right. But behind the scenes are some amazing music executives who are making time and dedicating their time in their positions to affecting change. And so they basically came together to create Universal Music Group's Task Force for Meaningful Change, founded in criminal justice reform. Obviously, it's a music company. So what does it mean for the music world to kind of shift and use their platforms that bring music, brings everybody together, but use those positions to affect change? So they quickly organized together, and now we are going to be entering our fourth year. Wow. So the goal was to work together and really institutionalize this effort with the company. And that's, we're hitting the ground running, trying to support organizations like Know Your Rights Camp that are doing amazing work and thoughtful, meaningful work in this space, and really make sure we're leveraging our dollars, but also our time to learning and connecting with our organization partners to make a better change. So
that's amazing. Yeah, and congrats on getting into year 4. That's huge. Yeah. And that you've been able to see the transition and how needed it is in these spaces. So I think it's amazing work that you guys are doing. So could you tell me more about how the Meaningful Task Force aligns with the Know Your Rights Camp mission as we're here to elevate the next generation of change leaders? How do you see the alignment within the Know Your Rights Camp?
Yeah, absolutely. So the great thing about what you guys do is you situate and center liberation unapologetically as it relates to the Black and Brown community, really kind of investing in the next generation of leaders, but doing it in a way that is in community, with community, as opposed to sort of coming from sort of some outside, foreign place that doesn't kind of recognize the importance of being with community. I think that's really important, like the models that work. And so for us, the other part is this whole thing we're fighting is a real thing. And in some ways it's hidden in plain sight. Our democracy in many ways was formulated on the marginalization of communities. And we see our task force as a driver of social change. Mm-hmm. So we are also unapologetic in our approach to philanthropy through the lens of fighting racial inequality. Mm-hmm. So, part of that means we have to invest in trust-based philanthropy. We have to know that the partners we work with who do this every day know the work in a more intimate way than we do. Two, dollars and investment are really important. So yes, it's important to educate and create programs and awareness, but the organizations doing that need to be supported financially. Right. And so, and the third is really like the framework, I would say, around, we talk about human rights a lot, and a lot of times we'll situate it in an international context outside of race and racism in America. And, what we're fighting is the ability to bring human rights to all people, right? So I think you guys do a great job of humanizing and understanding, Black Lives Matter through a human rights lens. So for us, we take that seriously, right? So what that means for us is that, we are funding constantly in criminal justice reform, whether it's wraparound services, supporting Know Your Rights Camp, and your Autopsy initiative, which you're doing a fantastic, that's another such amazing work that's being done, because you kind of really understand, where families and communities need help. For us, we're also looking at more local level organizations, not just the bigger ones that everyone knows about, but really trying to bring equity within philanthropy. So we'll also take a framework of our UN Sustainable Development Goals, of which there are 17. All of those critically matter for our lives, right? So for instance, this year we focused on zero hunger, which is a goal around the world. But what does that look like in the US? Right. Through a racial equity lens, when 24% of Black Americans are food insecure. So we are out in community doing research to identify the organizations that are stepping in the face of food insecurity and supporting them. We did this last year with public health as well. And next year we'll be doing some work on decent work and economic growth, looking at housing and jobs and the Black and brown community, while we're also providing funds in criminal justice reform and also in the music industry. So we're trying to also practice what we preach and really live up to our name. We want meaningful change. We have to be meaningful about our approach and be very thoughtful about connecting with partners who get it. And then my whole thing is, I say this often, like, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel, but just putting some nice gold rims on that car that's going in the right direction. Right. Like, you guys have a working model that's connecting the community. So we don't need to figure out, you guys did. All we need to do is keep your car going, give you some more gas. Put the right mechanics in your car. On it. That's what we do. So that's why we're here. So it's been great.
No, thank you so much for that context. And I think that the work that you guys are doing is really amazing. And it's really great that you've been able to work in so many different sectors of social justice. Yeah. And so what social justice would you say are the most meaningful to you, or what of course, everything has a importance and a purpose, but kind of what social justice initiatives or interests do you have, and kind of where your passion for social justice stemmed from?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think, part of my work as a researcher and political scientist, and I've spent a decade on the Hill, heading public policy for the Congressional Black Caucus, and they're always committed to forwarding policy and pushing back on a policy that have disparate racial outcomes. I think part of that is making sure that data is always being collected that show in the aggregate that our communities are still suffering, because we're in a post-civil rights era. All of this becomes harder in a different way to convince the country and the world that race still matters. And it's not just race, it's racism. So people are still, institutions are still operating against people based on race. But it's hard to make that case when, hey, we've had the first Black president, we're in a post-civil rights era, it's unconstitutional to discriminate, and yet it still happens, right? So part of the work is to make sure the data reflects the realities of the lived experiences of Black and brown people. So that's important. The other is to recognize that social justice shows up, or the lack thereof, in almost every socioeconomic situation our communities live in. So it's not just in the school system, it's also when you go to the doctor. And it also has to do with the type of neighborhood environment you live in, right? Everything is correlated. And so when your zip code is telling the world more about your story than anything else, we need to recognize this can't all be coincidental.
Right.
You know, there's a history and context that explain why our communities are where they are, and also what means do they get out of those systems. So I think recognizing that it's not just about, you know, protesting, not just about passing policy. It's that too, right? But it's
Yeah.
also recognizing it shows up in every single space. And then the other part I'll just say for me is recognizing equality and equity are not the same things. And that's really important when people are trying to figure out this DEI stuff. It's easy to sort of say we have a diversity, equity, inclusion arm of our company or institution. And that's great. We need more diversity. We need more of it in Congress. We need more of it, you know, in schools and in our educators and all of that, right?
Right.
But I think the other part is we don't want to fall short of just saying, okay, we brought a fair opportunity for everyone, as opposed to looking at the quality of that opportunity. And so to me, the fight is a lot more about equity now. You know, and so just kind of understanding that at a baseline, right? Like what you guys are doing with these camps is transformational. I told Colin last time in South Central, like, I hope you recognize that you are the revolutionary of our time. You may not realize that, but what you're doing is critically important to shaping the future of the next generation, because they're going to learn at a very young age, obviously, the rights they have, but they're going to also recognize what they're missing when they're in school, and what and they're going to ask questions about that and engage, because they're going to be better for these camps. They're going to know more and say, how come we're not learning about this in school? I see myself in the camp, I don't see it in the classroom.
Yeah.
Where's that disconnect? And then they're going to start to ask those questions and be those leaders. So you don't know what you don't know. So to me, education is a huge part of this. And we have a fight. We have a fight to make sure that we're able to, you know, teach people the history that has been stolen from them, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of, I think, recognizing social justice. It shows up in all forms, and it shows up in your day-to-day experiences and every facet of your life. So I think the more people get that, and the more engaged, like-minded people are with each other, we can then also even help those like us who want to do better but may not know how.
Right.
And so that's the other part of just, it's a long answer to your question, but
was a great answer,
something I'm
touching a lot of
you know,
points. Yeah.
passionate about, and we feel very honored and privileged to be part of this camp, to learn from it, and to see that, you know, change one person can change the world. Like, you don't have to wait. You can just get out there and do it. The goal is to just be unapologetic and purposeful with the mission, and then surround yourself with people like you guys. So everyone needs to know about this camp, and I'm very happy that Universal's task force, you know, we are so excited about this partnership, so excited to learn from you all and to volunteer, be part of this, and tell the world about it. You know?
We appreciate that, and we're just as excited to learn as much from you guys, and to have your support means a lot to us. And again, to have similar missions that align, to be around people who generally, like you said, we talked about right before this, actually doing the work, because it's not an easy space to be in. It's difficult when you're in these social justice spaces, because you see how much you want to change, how much work needs to be done, but it's also making sure that you stay hopeful and surround yourself with the right people who are also have that same passion and want to see that change. Absolutely. So I think that's so amazing. And then my last question is more just like, how can people help and support the Meaningful Task Force? Like, what can people do to either kind of learn more information? How can we support? What can the viewers know so they can continue to support the work that you guys are doing?
Yes, well, for all the folks who are tech savvy, can join us at UMG TFMC. That's the Task Force for Meaningful Change. You can also come to our website, or just Google Universal Music Group Task Force for Meaningful Change. We are a family. We have a community-based approach to the work we do. So, you know, we know music changes the world, and the fact that people who make that music and are behind the music understand that they can be a driver for social change. That's kind of what we do. So, you know, come and, you know, join our efforts. We'd love to learn about organizations across the country we understand the value proposition of social capital. Our communities are invested in each other. So yes, we can have all the databases in the world to discover organizations like yours, or we can just talk to people, right? Because we come from these communities. It's not rocket science, right? So it's like if we lean in to our own positions in community, people we know invested in this work, that's our starting point, is literally within the community of people we know, and then branching out and learning more. So we want to learn about all the small local organizations that wouldn't always have an opportunity to get funding from a big company to come to us, tell us what they do. We do a lot. I spend a lot of my time meeting with our partners. We don't want to do something through a computer. We don't know who's on the other side of it. So we want to know their names and faces. We want to learn from them. So, and it's been honestly so rewarding to be on sort of from Capitol Hill to this position, kind of seeing the folks behind the work on the ground doing this work. So many amazing models. We funded a young lady in DC who has an organization called Scholarships, and she's a daughter of incarcerated parents who started an organization to provide scholarships for other children who have, and it's like yes, we need that, but nobody else has been doing it. She's doing it, right? And so it's like just tapping into our own community of people who have firsthand experience and knowledge, and trusting them and believing in their process and supporting it. So that's essentially what we're about. So we want to keep, filling our cup with all of the people out there trying to make the world a better place for our people and bring equity and equality and social justice to our people who need it. So.
Well, that sounds amazing. And I hope as many people as possible can get involved and contribute, because I think there's so many times there's so many great programs and initiatives and resources, but if our communities who need them don't know about it, they're not as effective. So it really is about coming together and collaborating. So I think that you guys are doing an amazing job at that already. And I'm just so excited to kind of continue to see what other initiatives you guys are able to support and continuing to make change in these spaces. So it's been so great to get to speak with you. We're so glad you're at the camp with us. So we just really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate you all too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching the Know Your Rights Camp podcast. Please make sure to follow us on all of our socials and go ahead and take a visit to our Know Your Rights Camp website.